Hello Elite Wellness Warriors, welcome to my channel. If you haven't seen me before, my name is Vishal Soni and I'm here to guide you through today's topic, which we're talking about genes and how they impact on our health. Now, a little bit about me. I started this particular Facebook group about 12 months ago. It's got 800 members around the world and we would love to have you join our channel. You will find us on Facebook, so please look for us there. And it is a beautiful community to help you heal from chronic fatigue syndrome, ME and fibromyalgia, which in my experience of having this for 8 years is an absolute headache of a condition to try and beat. And that's why I designed this particular group, to help you find your way through this labyrinthine disease. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to tell you why I'm making this video. Well, I'm making this because I had a 23andme.com salivary test done very recently, and it was incredibly useful. Now, what I did, I had the health and ancestry aspect of it done. It's the health aspect that I'm going to be dealing with obviously today, not the ancestry, because that's not important to you lot. But I'm Indian, 100% by the way. And originally from Arabia. Anyway, so I digress. So I then got my raw data and I plugged it into something called Genetic Genie, which generated this wonderful report and told me whether I was homozygous, heterozygous in my gene pairings, my allele pairings. Okay, so that's where this came from. It also then goes on to generate a lovely report for you, which tells you what your single nucleotide polymorphisms are and why they and how they impact on your health. So that was very useful in gene. Indeed, genes on the brain. So that's that. Okay. So I'm going to give you some of the most important genes that you need to know about when you're considering genetic testing for fibromyalgia ME/CFS. One of the key ones that you need to know, without a shadow of a doubt, is MTHFR, which sounds like an expletive, and believe you me, the symptoms would make you use that expletive quite a lot, but I'm not using that expletive here today. So, what is it? It's responsible for methylation. Now, methylation is a process by which you take a methyl group, which is CH3, and you attach it to many different things. Now, those different things could be other genes to switch them on or off. It could be enzymes. It could be hormones. It could be neurotransmitters, or it could be vitamins or other minerals. So you can see it's quite important to activate other biochemical processes. And when we're dealing with things like neurotransmitters, for example, the three that we're talking about in particular with ME/CFS right now, because I think they're quite significant myself, is when you're talking about serotonin, which regulates your mood. When you're talking about dopamine, which is responsible for rewarding behaviors, so when you hug somebody or you're falling in love with somebody, it surges a release of dopamine, which in turn makes you feel good. And of course melatonin, which is what serotonin turns into, which of course regulates your sleep. So you can see how methylation is feeding into these and how methylation is vital for the functioning of this correctly. Dopamine, when you I've taken a little branch off here, which if you join Elite Wellness Warriors, you will see that branch. I'll take a picture of this and put it on that particular group, so you can actually see this whiteboard behind me. And it converts, you can see that dopamine converts to noradrenaline and adrenaline, which are responsible for mobilizing actions. So it mobilizes you for action, makes you aroused for that, gives you alertness and enhances your memory. Too much can be very problematic. Too little can lead to disaffection and low mood. So you can see how it's a real biochemical balance here, which MTHFR plays into quite significantly. When you're looking at these particular, essentially it's what I've just said, which is when you're looking at these, you're looking at two aspects. You're looking at these particular neurotransmitters that are responsible for fight or flight, or rest and digest. So if these are out of balance, then you can either be fight or flight too much, which means you're really agitated and really like, oh, I need to survive. That's what the fight or flight mechanism is for, which I'm sure you already know. Or if you're resting and digesting, that's kind of this malaise where you're just chilling out a lot. So you've got to get those two aspects right in order to achieve homeostatic balance. Okay. It's also, if you consider 85% of methylation occurs in the liver, which is responsible for detox. So if you don't methylate properly, you can't detox properly. And also methylation is responsible for making the master substance called antioxidant, I should say, glutathione, which, if you have multiple chemical sensitivities, is going to be a significant attributing molecule for that particular process. Okay, so MCS is something we all experience, many of us do, if we have ME/CFS fibromyalgia, so that's quite important as well. Interestingly, in my own journey, I found that I've also got a histamine problem. Now, that's meaning that if I have a high histamine food, I release those histamines automatically within the system, and I have a trouble really breaking it down. Methylation reduces histamine, making it kind of inert, and that's very, very useful as well. I'll also say that histamine is actually quite useful. It is a very, very useful thing to trigger an immune response. So if you've got a pathogen that's decided to wheedle its way in and you want to destroy it, histamine is very, very useful. And if I remember correctly, is released from mast cells. So it's very, very useful, and it's dependent on methylation working effectively. All right, so that's MTHFR. Very important, that little bugger. Other genes that you need to be very aware of, comte is incredibly useful. You can have a fast comte or a slow comte. Comte, I think it's comethyl transferase, if I remember correctly. It regulates the breakdown of neurotransmitters. So if you are having a fast comte, it's going to break those neurotransmitters down too quickly, leading to low mood, etc., etc. And if you've got a slow comte, and excess of these build up in the system, agitation, anxiety, panic, etc., etc., can be attributed to that. Now, I do understand my own two grandparents had Parkinson's disease. I have a comte genetic polymorphism. Mom has a genetic polymorphism in comte. Both of ours are too fast. It can lead to a greater propensity for Parkinson's disease because, of course, the neurotransmitter called dopamine is broken down too quickly. So we need to do more things to make more dopamine. For example, eating a high-protein diet, which, of course, releases tyrosine into the system, which can then convert to dopamine. So we have augmented our diet as well to ensure that we compensate for this disposition that we've got genetically. And on that, DAO is another genetic polymorphism, single nucleotide polymorphism, I should say. Codes for the DAO enzyme, which is responsible for the mopping up of histamine in the system. Interestingly, histamine is also a neurotransmitter, moderating and regulating your moods and your thoughts and your emotions. So if it's out of whack, out of kilter, this can be a problematic enzyme for you. DAO is not tested in 23andMe, but Dr. Ben Lynch, who wrote this wonderful book, I highly recommend it, elaborates on that a little bit more. He is coming out with his own genetic test as well, which will test, no doubt, for that DAO, and it'll also test for another one that is not tested in 23andMe, and that is the MAO genetic polymorphism. MAO is responsible for mopping up very quickly serotonin. So if you have a fast MAO, that's what it does. And if you have a slow MAO, it doesn't remove stress from neurotransmitters either. GST, or GPX, is responsible for glutathione production. So a polymorphism, single nucleotide polymorphism, or SNP in this area, will lead to a lack of glutathione, which will lead not inversely. As a consequence, it will lead to a chemical sensitivity. You will be highly sensitive to many chemicals, many foods and chemicals, gluten, dairy, etc., etc., environmental toxins, etc., etc. So if you have a GST, lucky me, I also have that. That can lead to a problem in the MCS aspect as well. And finally, PEMT is also not tested in 23andMe, but it's an important one to notify you of. And ladies and gentlemen, that is responsible for the production of phosphatidylcholine, which is responsible for effective and nice and fluid cell membranes to allow stuff in and allow stuff out. So if you imagine how important that is for what goes into your cells, which can affect your respiration, and what goes out of your cells, which can affect your detoxification pathways. So if you are deficient in phosphatidylcholine, you can end up in a real situation where you have aches, pains, etc., etc. Sound like fibromyalgia, anyone? Yes. So that's it. There are other polymorphisms. NOS3, SOD, superoxide dismutase, which is superoxide is a nasty one that you want to get rid of. Which, by the way, NOS is not tested for in 23andMe. SOD is. CBS is. VDR, which is a vitamin D one, is tested for. MTR is really important as well for your for your B12 absorption, as is MTRR, and those are tested for in the 23andMe process. All right. MTHFR solutions. What are they? Very simply, methylfolate, methylcobalamin. They need to be taken together. If you can't handle methyl donors, which I can't because I've got a comte issue, then you can have folinic acid and you can have hydroxy B12 or adeno B12. Adeno B12 is for your mitochondrial B12, and your hydroxy B12 is very effective for reducing nitrogen oxides, which can be interfering in the methylation process in some respects. That's it. There's a lot of information. I get that. But hopefully that information is really useful for you. If you like what you've seen, please feel free to like the video. And if you like me and what I've delivered for you, then hopefully you'll be able to subscribe to my channel. Take care, everybody. Wishing you wellness always. And really, really hope you have the best of health always. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.